Hello, welcome to week 7 and our final presentation about our stroller lanes at Disneyland. This is group 7 with Bradley, McCall, Cy, and I am Sydney. So this week we revised our business model canvas. So this is a picture of our revised business model canvas. We made quite a few revisions. We mostly just kind of really streamlined things, kind of focused them down, and then added a few different things that we discussed in class, specifically about customer relationships and revenue streams. So first of all, kind of the things that we streamlined and really focused in on was project management and adding that as a key partner, a key resource, and a key activity. There are so many different pieces involved in the actual implementation of stroller lanes, including marketing and a bunch of third-party contractors like environmental analysts, engineers, construction companies, that a strong project manager and management plan is going to be necessary to keep all of these different components together and really make sure that the rollout and the success of the stroller lines is efficient and accurate. Second, we focused the value proposition. We wanted to make sure that we hit all of our original assumptions on how we thought that stroller lanes provided value. So we really made those really specific and focused. And then we also addressed the indirect value that stroller lanes create, which of course is increasing the overall park experience and efficiency of people without strollers. So the target customer segment is people with strollers at Disneyland. And as discussed in class, we can really engage with those customers via 3 different strategies. First, they can access stroller lanes through self-service, which is just on their own, reading the signs, doing their own research, just kind of figuring it out as they go on their own. Also, there will be personal assistants on hand at Disneyland in the form of customer representatives. They can ask questions, answer questions, things like that, really help people get familiar with when, how, where, why to use stroller lanes. And then the third is through co-creation. Disneyland has a lot of its own digital media sites, and also there are a ton of Disneyland influencers out there who will no doubt do research and a little bit of promotion about stroller lanes, so customers can find out about it that way as well. Finally, we addressed the revenue streams. We kind of had just generally talked about how stroller lanes will create some indirect revenue for Disney, but really we want to call this the multi-business model. Now, we're not a freemium model. Disneyland is not charging for stroller lanes. It's a free service that you encounter in the park if you have a stroller, but stroller lanes combine 2 customer groups, those with strollers and those without strollers, and attempt to make the Disneyland experience better for both, which is why we chose the multi-business model. And again, that creates indirect revenue because everybody will have a more efficient and better experience at the park, which will then lead people to probably repurchase tickets and continue visiting Disneyland rather than say, oh my God, it was so crowded, I hated it, I'm never going back. Also, people with strollers who might not attend Disneyland because they don't like the idea of congestion might purchase tickets with stroller lanes, whereas they might not have without. So those are the revisions we made to really streamline our stroller lane process. And now we'd like to give you a couple of reflections on the overall process. I will pass it to McCall.
Great. Thank you so much, Sydney. So some of our key takeaways from this whole course started with the journey mapping. And this was a really interesting part because what I learned from that experience is that even though all 4 of our team members are similar demographics, we're young, highly educated, working professionals with no kids, and a company might target all of us as the same customer segment. But what we discovered is that we all actually have very different preferences, different pain points, and are looking for a different shopping experience. So that was a great way to start out, to kind of figure out that even though you may look and be of a very similar demographic, there's really a wide array, and you need to be able to dive down more into the details of what your customers are looking for. Another key takeaway I had from this class was when we talked about how you should really come out with a rudimentary prototype, a rudimentary model right from the get-go. And that is meant to decrease the emotional attachment to your first prototypes. We received a lot of great feedback on our stroller lane prototypes. However, we also found out that people had some negative opinions about maybe too many features or things that they didn't like with our stroller lanes. So taking that away from class and realizing that it's actually beneficial to come in with more of a rough prototype. Can be a great thing so that you're really open and willing to accept that negative feedback. And that was really another one of my key takeaways from this course. So now I'd like to pass it off to Brad.
Awesome. Thank you, McCall. And first off, I just want to say thank you, Professor, for a great 7 weeks and learning so much about innovation and design. I know our team took a lot away from it and put it into this great project that we've been able to work on. So thank you there. And I'm going to reiterate probably some of the same stuff McCall talked about and then provide some additional flavor. But one of the biggest takeaways for me was just all about the customer journey map and the personas that we started with in the beginning. And when you talked about that hawk example, that keeps coming up in my head every single time I think about it. And you talked about how we're so quick to dismiss the beauty of like a hawk, and our brain will just be, oh, it's a hawk, and move on. And right, that's how day-to-day happens. It's sometimes robotic, it's sometimes mundane, but sometimes in order to effectively target our customers and realize their pain points, we need to slow down and appreciate like the beauty of the journey and kind of put ourselves in their shoes and what they feel, what they see, what they experience. And so that was a big takeaway for me, and how we were able to like implement that not only at the grocery store, but then in our own also Disney stroller target persona. Second, I think, the testing prototypes was really cool, just to bring some of the creative brainstorming we had to life. We were able to also build really well together with the creative side of things and the analytical side of things, use Qualtrics, collect a lot of good data, and continue to implement iterations of our models. And then lastly, I want to leave on a takeaway about just overall team synergy. I think we had a great mix of diverse talent in the room, and so we were able to really maximize each other's abilities and skills to create a real efficient and well done project. So with that, I'll pass it off to Sai to finish us off.
Thank you, Brad. So coming to my personal takeaway would be this first class of this course, where we were assigned or given a task to observe each of a cohort, or just in general people outside the Kobe building. That's when with that observation, I understood how we all, though enter through the same front door or the door of the building, we perceive the space to be completely different. The space outside the Appleton statue, or the space, gathering space outside the Brady garage, how all these spaces we perceive them differently, and that's how I understood the importance of journey maps, and how the journey maps helps us to have our high points and low points, how we see the space in general affects our daily routine, and leading to the shopping experience. This has given a better understanding of more impersonal, as the persona we chose during the exercise was somewhat related to our own age group. And as McCall said earlier, it is, though we all belong to the same demographic, our own individuality comes out during the shopping experience, where I am a food lover and would like to spend more time, whereas McCall, who is on the go shopper, or comes in with a certain item in mind. So in that way, I could see what the entire exercise wanted to talk about, and that helped me to understand how to come up with a project statement, or how to come up with an idea to make the overall experience more pleasant. And lastly, I would like to say that the business model canvas opened my view towards as to how a prototype or a product can be introduced into market, and gave me an opportunity to explore all the key resources, or all the stakeholders related into a single page or a single board. So these were the few factors or key takeaways I would like to take forward.
All right, thank you, Sai. So to bring it home, a few of my key takeaways specifically from the entire process, just as a general process, was really how each step in the process fostered the next one. So it really made sense to me conceptually and chronologically how the next step in the process really built upon what you learned and the foundations that you gained from the previous process. So that was really interesting to me. And I think that that's a super beneficial lesson going forward for sure, is how you can just continuously build when you take the time to really reflect on what you've learned from one process and one step before you move to the next. It makes the next step that much more meaningful and that much more successful and efficient. From this project, specifically our stroller lanes, it was funny because the pain point arised from something that I went through personally, and the original persona was like me. So, but then it was super interesting to see how, as our stroller lane idea evolved, we realized that the persona is actually not me. It's the opposite. It's people who do take strollers to Disneyland. So the very thing that caused my pain point ended up being our target consumer and who we built our solution around. And while I'm an indirect benefiter, it was so interesting to, again, just consistently innovate and design and be flexible. I think it was McCall who mentioned being flexible and just, having the ability to continuously, again, just build upon your previous step and be flexible along the way and take into account the suggestions from your prototype testing. It was all just fascinating. And it was really fulfilling in the end to have a business model that we actually really think that we could implement, and side note, are trying to see if we can turn it into our capstone project. So stay tuned. Again, thank you very much for a really great 7 weeks. We really appreciated the environment you created to foster innovation and creativity. See you soon.
Thanks for a great quarter.